It's now time for us to begin our discussion, but we'll be starting this time with water safety. If you remember a few days ago, precisely last week, there was this disturbing news from from Anambra State, where a boat capsized and some persons lost their life from the Nollywood industry, and that has continued to generate so much reaction. So this morning we have a water safety expert. He is also a swimming instructor who is joining us from Dallas, Texas in the USA to tell us more of us. There you have her. She is Roslyn Ogbeche. A very good morning to you, if you can hear me.
Good morning, Dominic.
All right. It seems we can get her, but we can't really get you. If you can hear me, Roslyn. Very good morning.
Good morning. I can hear you.
Okay, fine. I know you know about the boat mishap that happened a few weeks ago. Tell us, when you got the news, what was your first reaction looking at safety on waters?
Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about this topic. It is very, very heartbreaking. As a water safety educator, it's very, very sad. I've been advocating and talking about water safety for a long time now. So first of all, my condolences go out to the families of those that have lost these loved ones through this mishap that happened last week. I pray that God will console them. Now the first thing that comes to my mind is that how can we prevent ourselves? How can we prevent and protect ourselves and be prepared for situations like this? Is there anything that we could have done? So what I'm going to talk about today has nothing really to do with, in particular, relating to the case, because all I've read is circumstantial, is what I've seen on the internet. I don't know the facts between both parties. So what I'm talking about is just what we as individuals, what we in the positions that we are in, what we can do to prevent ourselves from incidents of drowning, to protect ourselves and to be prepared for such situations. So it really touched me deeply. Every time I hear somebody loses a life to drowning, it really affects me deeply, and I'm very sad and I'm very sorry, and I'm just hoping that we can kind of share some light on what we can do as individuals to prevent and to protect and to prepare ourselves from any incidents of drowning.
All right, I should share lights on what to do. Let's begin from the preliminary stages. When you try to embark on the trip on waters, what should be the first safety measures one should consider? For instance, it's something that you cannot predict, but as an individual you should be able to prepare your mind for the unforeseen circumstances once you're traveling on waters.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about two different environments that this can happen. So you are very right. You are talking of if you are going on water, how can you prevent, how can you protect yourself? Now there are two environments that this can happen, and it applies to everybody. Controlled environments, we have uncontrolled environments. The situation that happened last week was an uncontrolled environment. Water transport, flooding, things we didn't foresee happening. And then you have controlled environments where we can also protect ourselves, and there are still safety measures that we can implement even within controlled environments. So for controlled environments, you're talking about swim academies, like my swim academy, Alpine Swim Academy. You're talking of school pools where they are teaching. You're talking of educators, hotel pools, private home pools, situations where you have actually set up a pool for the purpose of either teaching or pleasure. You also can implement safety measures there. And then of course you talk about uncontrolled environments, you talk of floods, water transport, and environments where you did not foresee yourself getting into any accident, but they can potentially happen. Now there are three categories of people that are responsible and have the accountability for protecting and preventing these incidents from happening, and we all fall into one of these positions. First of all, we have employers, then we have employees, and we have the government. So I'm going to talk about these three categories and what we can do as individuals or in any of these positions to help protect ourselves, to prevent ourselves, to prepare for this incident, not just for us, but for loved ones, people around us. Let's talk about employees first. So an employee, employers. Employers have the onus is on them to protect their employees. When an employee is coming to a place of work, when you're sending them out to do any work or duty, employer has to make sure that they provide the employee with every form of protective equipment, every form of maintenance, anything required to make sure that they carry out the job safely. For example, when you come to my academy or you walk in right from through the gates, we make sure there is a security, there's armed security. When you get in, we make sure that there is a first aid. All our staff, instructors, trained first aid, CPR. We make sure that we have all the equipment continuously tested and maintained to make sure it is working. When the clients come in, we make sure we know their status. Can they swim? Can they not swim? How old are they? Do they need a parent? We make sure there are safety elements that are working all round, every time tested and ready. We can protect and prevent ourselves. Now, these are controlled environments. Uncontrolled environments, we have to make sure also, for example, that there are life kits. If you are going on water transport, if you are going to enter any event where you think something might happen, it's just like getting on a plane and making sure you have the seat belt. The onus is on the employer to make sure they have provided these safety equipment to the employer, to anybody going through any water transport. Even in terms of the employee, the onus is also on us. We have the accountability and responsibility to also make sure that we are guarded, we are safe, that we do not enter any dangerous situation. If you are going on any type of transport, make sure that you are safe, you are guarded, you have all the necessary tools and equipment. Ask your employer, make sure they have provided you with what they need. Do not go into any situation. Make sure that you are safe and anybody you are going with is safe. The government have a duty also to implement policies and guidelines and things that can help us with responsibility. As human beings, a lot of the time we follow what is controlled. We follow what is a rule. We tend to follow rules more than if there are no rules. So they owe it to us to also implement that it is compulsory for these things to be provided. If you're in the means of water transport and a boat can take 6 people, you should have up to 8 life jackets on that boat, even in case something happens. And that is what we do even at the academy. We make sure that everybody is safe.
Let's look at it from this other side. We understand that when that incident happened, there is every possibility that those who would have been able to swim or probably have a means of remaining afloat the water couldn't have done that because they lack the basic skills. Now, how important it is for someone to know how to swim in terms like this? We have bigger waters, just like you mentioned, there are different environments where things like this can happen. But why is it so important that we should, as individuals, learn how to swim so that we can have these maybe basic safety measures in water before you get help, if that is very, very necessary? I know some life would have been saved because we know, for instance, the person who piloted that boat was able to save himself because he could swim.
Exactly. Very, very good. So again, this is where we talk of the employee. This is where you as an employee, you as an individual, the onus is on you also to learn to swim, learn basic water safety and survival skills. Again, I'll come to the government and say that they have to implement this in schools. It has to be a compulsory part of learning in education, so that as the children begin to learn from a young age and it becomes a life skill. Flooding, you can be in water in any time. It can happen at any time. I've been in a flood before when I was in Lagos traveling to work, and there was flooding everywhere. You have to be prepared for this. So swimming is a life skill. We have to learn to swim. Now, the key thing of what we teach, even at Alpine Swim Academy, that I've been talking about, is basic water safety and survival skills. There are things that you can do immediately to save yourselves. The guy that was on the boat, I think it was the boat driver, was able to swim. So even if you have a life jacket, you still need some basic water and safety skills that can give you that fighting chance to survive. There are things like treading the water, things to help you keep your head above water, learning how to breathe, learning how to stay calm. learning how to be confident, learning how to float, learning how to stay with your back and your head up so you can stay and float for as long as possible until somebody finds you. There's something like doggy paddle that you can do so that you can keep yourself kicking and staying safe. You can even also, we'll teach you how to also stay in the water to exert as less energy and pressure as possible so you can stay long enough to be found by somebody. So these are some of the basic water safety and survival skills that you have to learn, be it in a hotel pool, be it in a, go to a swim club, go to a controlled environment where they can teach you these basic water safety and survival skills so that anywhere you find yourself, you can start to help yourself. Now, the most important thing is staying calm and confident, which we all know that is the most difficult thing to do. And the reason why people panic is because they don't know what to do in such situations. If you have learned water safety and survival skills, when you find yourself in that situation, that will kick in. Your training, your knowledge, it's a life skill that you can never forget. Not only can you save yourself, you can even potentially save somebody else. The World Health Organization says that drowning is the third cause of unintentional injury death worldwide, and about 236,000 people are dying of drowning annually. It accounts for 7% of injury-related deaths, and especially those of us that live around water and riverine areas, especially children and even men are more susceptible to drowning, and we'll talk about that as we go forward. But there are things that you can do as an individual to immediately save yourself and give yourself a 15 chance of survival if you find yourself in flooding or in water or in environments that.
So how long does it take for one to probably save yourself before you get help in time if you're in water? You just mentioned there are skills that will help you to stay afloat before you get help, but for how long can one sustain it before you get the necessary assistance?
So that is why we learn to swim, and that is why we learn water safety and survival skills, and that is why we learn a variety of different methods of trying to stay afloat, because you do not know how long you can be in that situation. There are many different, there are calm floods, there's where the tidal wave comes, there's on the beach as well. So there are different ways. There's even in a controlled pool, it's deep and you can fall in deep, and if you cannot swim, you cannot kind of survive. So again, it's before you are found, before somebody hears you. Do you know that when you are drowning in water, people that are looking at you do not necessarily realize you are drowning, because you can't scream as loud. So it's actually very difficult to identify somebody that is drowning. When water comes in, they panic and they fear. So you don't even know how long it will take you. So that is again why you need to learn a variety of ways that you can save yourself. We do not know how long it will take. You can't say how long it will take. All you need to do is to learn how to stay long, stay calm, and then breathing, how to breathe calmly. So that's why it's important to learn how to keep your head above the water with all these different skills so that you can survive long enough to be found.
How important is the safety jacket? Because we understand that during that incident, one of the victims, as Juno Pope, rejected the safety jacket simply because it was dirty. But most people don't know how important it is. How does it work? Why is it important that you should have it when you're on board either a boat or a canoe?
Now, safety equipment is very important. Like I mentioned before, you get into a plane, you need to put your seatbelt on. They tell you where the life jacket is. They explain the whole situation to you and what to do when you get in. Now, if your seatbelt wasn't working, I don't think you would get it. You would agree to sit down and fly in the plane. You will make sure that you have everything that you need to protect yourself. It is very important to have a life jacket. Look, even if you can swim, have a life jacket. It again, in addition to all the water safety and survival skills, it gives you another standing chance of survival. What the life jacket does is that it keeps you afloat. But I tell you that when you are even panicking and you can't swim, you know, you will even struggle. I've seen somebody struggle with a life jacket, but it helps to keep you afloat. So it starts first, and then you cannot begin to enact those water safety and survival skills to stay long enough to survive. It's very, very important. Again, there have to be government stipulations, regulations, and guidelines that insist that if you are operating any form of water transport, you must have this equipment readily available. And like I mentioned before, don't even have the exact amount, have an excess amount in case one is not working or something goes wrong. There is excess. So it is very, very important to put it on. Now again, I don't know the situation of this case. All I know is that, you know, people died from drowning and they could have saved themselves if they have the safety equipment on them. So again, as an individual, in any situation you are going to, you would not open your eyes and walk into the lion's den. You will not open your eyes and walk into a zoo. You will make sure that you are protected. So make sure that if you are going into any form of transport, ask the employer, ask the question, get me a life jacket, get me all the safety equipment that I need. Where are the exits? Where can I easily deboard if there's anything? We have to protect ourselves.
You've been talking about the government effort, and I want to take you back there so we'll emphasize more on that, because the incident that happened last week is not just the first one. We're having instances of boats mishap severally, sometimes in rural areas where you don't even get to hear this news. And there are some communities where they claim that children from that area as young as 2 years, sometimes even below 2 years, emerge into water just to get them prepared for the future, probably teaching them how to swim at a very young age. Now, regulations from governments. We've had governments severally talking about people who violate safeties on waterways and all that. What do you have to say on this? What do you think the government can do for us to checkmate this kind of instances in Nigeria?
Accountability and responsibility. We must be held accountable. When something goes wrong, somebody must be held accountable. We have to get to the bottom of it and find out why it happened, and that person must be held accountable. The reason people get away with things is because there is no accountability. There is nobody standing up and saying, you caused this. The next person that hears that somebody was held accountable for a mistake or for not following procedures or guidelines, that person get into trouble. If this is implemented in all schools and it is compulsory as a life skill, if there is a school that is not implementing it, that school must be held accountable, either by fines or, in worst case, you know, more severe measures can be implemented to make sure that people are accountable. Because when you're accountable, you then become responsible. Then you think about what you do before you go ahead and do it, and make sure that you have covered all grounds. So it is important that regulations are put in place. Now, for example, in I think it's in the USA, there was a mother that lost her son because she had a private home pool. She wasn't aware that her child went in. In fact, I've done some interviews. I've talked to a few people, and I have some stories coming out of people that have lost their children in their own private home pools and what they could have done to prevent it. So it happened in the USA, in Delaware, and the woman now started advocating that all private home pools should have barriers, fences, and protective devices that will not allow a child to go there. And I'm sure you remember, we've had cases of also, not I say celebrity students because it's celebrities that we hear more of, more people dying that we don't even hear about. So you find out that we've lost, some celebrities have lost their children in their own private home pools. The reason is that there is no barrier or fence. So in Delaware, a law has even been enacted that before you put up a private home pool, you must have a barrier or a fence compulsory. So things like that can be put in place. Make sure it's a life skill. In the schools, what do they have? Do they have the life jackets? Are the instructors trained? Are the lifeguards trained? Do they have the necessary equipment to protect? Do they have first aid and CPR? Do people know how to use it? These are regulations that must be put into place where people's lives are susceptible to danger.
Certified water safety educator and swim instructor. It's been a delight having you all the way from Texas, USA this morning. Thanks so much for joining us, Roslyn Ogbeche.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All right, that's you have it from Texas, US, a swimming instructor telling us what to do awareness you find yourself in situations where you have to probably get help. Before you get help, what you need to do and why you need to learn how to swim for cases like this, like what happened last week. Some persons will tell you that these are disasters that are not predicted, but with simple techniques you might be able to save yourself or probably keep yourself afloat pending when you get help. Well, we'll take a quick break here, and when we return, the program This Morning on Night TV continues.